Hi, and welcome to Multiple Sclerosis, the Owner's Manual. My name is John Laverty, and I've had multiple sclerosis for over 25 years. This video is about that doctor's appointment where you learn that you have multiple sclerosis. It's difficult to prepare for that doctor's appointment because everything before that appointment in life is one way, and everything after that appointment is entirely different. So here's my experience. I was kind of lucky when I had that doctor's appointment because I had a couple of months to prepare for that appointment. I had met with the neurologist who was a multiple sclerosis specialist. He had done a whole battery of tests on me. And then I was told by him that I will see you in a couple of months. I knew he was an MS specialist. I knew that he had done all the tests that my other neurologist had done. But the difference was he wasn't just a neurologist, he was an MS specialist. So during the time between my examination with him, where he did the tests, and my appointment with him where I was going to find out what the test meant, I had plenty of time to do research. So I went into that doctor's appointment very well prepared. I knew the different types of multiple sclerosis. I knew what they were. I knew their names. I knew how they were different from each other. There are basically three types that I discovered. And I pretty much figured out that I had primary progressive MS. So when I had that doctor's appointment, my doctor sat me down and he said, "John, I'm sorry to tell you that you have multiple sclerosis." My response took him by surprise, and it certainly took me by surprise because I was relieved. For years, I'd been explaining to my friends when they asked me what was wrong, why is your walking off? I'd been explaining that it was first this disease, then another disease, then another disease, because I had had several misdiagnoses along the way, which is a common occurrence for people with MS. So when he told me I had MS, I was actually relieved. It surprised him, and he asked me if I was okay, because I seemed to be taking the news quite well, which I, in fact, was. During that doctor's appointment, I asked the doctor to show me on the computer screen in his office my MRI films. I wanted to see the white spots. I wanted to see what was causing all of my difficulties. And for the first time, I had a doctor point to the spots on the computer screen on my brain and in my spinal cord where I had lesions. And they were such tiny things. It was surprising that such tiny little things could pack such a wallop, but boy, did they. So here's where I could have used some help from the neurologist. And if you're a neurologist and you're watching this, listen to this part carefully. So after my neurologist said, "You have multiple sclerosis," he sent me on my way into the waiting room, where I went and saw my wife. At that time, I was still fairly mobile. I was using a cane to get around, although it was difficult for me. I was using a cane. And I went up to my wife and proudly said, "I have multiple sclerosis. Let's go out to eat, honey." And my neurologist didn't prepare me in any way to tell the world that I had MS. I can still see the tears streaming down my wife's face as I told her that I had MS. Because you see, when you have MS, you don't have it alone. If you have a significant other, they have it too. If you have a family, they have it too. In a very real way, your friends also have it. My neurologist did nothing to prepare me to share my news with the world. My neurologist should have told me to be careful with how you spread the news. I would have appreciated just a little guidance. Just, "Hey, John, be careful with your wife." But no, I was sent out into the world totally unprepared how to share the news. And I could not, in retrospect, I could not have done a worse job telling my wife that we had MS. The other thing that would have been helpful at that point was, how should I tell my employer that I had MS? Just a little bit of guidance about maybe, John, maybe think about how you're going to share this with your colleagues. And be careful with whom you share it and how you share it. I had no idea that it could possibly be problematic at work. Fortunately for me, it proved not to be. But there are plenty of people out there that could use that advice about how to share that news in the workplace. Of course, what I did, my very next day back at work, the first person I saw, my first colleague that I saw, I went up to her and said, "How's it going? I have MS. This explains all my problems." It was a bit of a coincidence, but it turned out my colleague had MS as well. She had told nobody that I knew of at work that she had MS. She had kept that news to herself and struggled with it at work. And I had no idea. I never saw her have any difficulty. But I went in and blabbed it out to everybody. So my doctor's appointment, where I learned about MS, was very memorable because it provided relief, and it also showed that there is a need for people with MS to be told how to deal with the news. That would have really been helpful. Neurologists, tell your patients to be careful with this information. Just tell them to think about it. If I'd gotten that much advice, I would have saved my wife a lot of pain. It would have been painful, but I certainly wouldn't have done it the way I had.